Alrighty, we are at the top of the hour, so we are just going to go ahead and get moving on this. I'm going to paste a link in the chat, so hopefully if you join later or on the recording, it'll show up. Otherwise, I will figure out a way to make all of that happen. Today, we are going to be going over all kinds of fun stuff, primarily the basics of AI. If you've been confused about it, don't know exactly where to start, what to do, which one to choose, which one's the best one, then we're going to go over all of that today. If you need me to slow down or anything, like pop it in the chat. I talk fast, may or may not go off on a tangent or two. That's just how this works. It's how my brain operates. So I first off want to tell you that you are not behind when it comes to AI because it's changing like hourly at this point. So you don't have to worry about being behind or anything like that. We're going to figure it out and you're going to build the foundation today so that you are equipped to handle it going forward because it's always changing, but there's a few core things that haven't changed much over the last couple of years other than we've all gotten better at kind of figuring it out. I'm sure you've seen all of the different like TikToks or shorts or whatever app you scroll on, people doing like, oh, I do this. Claude runs my business. ChatGPT did XYZ, my AI avatar, blah, 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 which is awesome. That is definitely more advanced. Eventually, I'll probably do something on those. But for right now, I want you to get set up so you are basically agnostic with your AIs. So whether you're using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, Kimi, there's so many of them out there and there's more coming out. So these are just going to be the foundations, the principles, so you know what to listen for, what you're looking for. And so everything you build with one AI or across multiple AIs goes with you. It doesn't just stay siloed in that one software. Because as we have all seen with social media, if you don't own the platform that you're doing all the work on, that you have your audience on, you're going to get screwed. We're not doing that with your intellectual property when it comes to AI. So some of the fun things that you can create is what I want to start off with, because yes, this is, I don't want to call it a lot of work, but you can do a lot with it and you can do a lot more when you know what you're doing. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start off with this one. So we'll go over the different AI models here in a minute, but I want to show you the things you can do. What's called an artifact, and it's basically just an AI output. And messages going back and forth, me and Claude. And I asked, hey, I want to learn about stock trading. Like, I know barely anything, build me a course. Went back and forth, it asked me a couple questions, and this is what it generated. So you can publish things like this, which is what I've done here, just kind of for demo purposes. So I just built myself a course. Yes, it is like a reading text heavy course. If I wanted to spend more tokens, I could have done a video course, but it's teaching me like what the candles are, what the wicks are. It is interactive. So it'll go through and give some examples. And then down here, it has like a little quiz. So I'll just go through and answer these quickly so you can see, because then it generates and does stuff. So it's always thinking. It's not just necessarily static. You can make it static, but what's the fun in that? So I can mark module 1 complete. I can get the results back to my Claude, and then it can go in and iterate. So like if I got those wrong, it could change the next one and remind me or teach me more of what it did in this one. And so it's dynamic. Now there's a little check mark and it auto popped me into module 2. So again, this is super easy. You can do this with like the $20 a month Claude plan. You can do this maybe not quite as easily, depending on the plan, with like Gemini or ChatGPT. Like I said, I want you to be set up so you're completely agnostic and not tied to one specific platform. I have used Claude as my primary for the last several years, but I do also, I'd say probably at least weekly, use Gemini or ChatGPT for something because their image generators are really good. Other things you can do, this is much more on the woo side of things. Again, this took me maybe 15 prompts to get to this point. I am really into like the EFT tapping. I went through a phase where I was really into it. Now it's just kind of part of what I do. And it helps me to think things through. So I just basically turned a prompt, instead of pasting a prompt every time, I just turned it into a chatbot. And so if you read this, say, all right, what's on your mind? What do you want to work on? I'm going to say money. And then it's going to probably come back, ask me a couple of questions, but it's basically just like a quick little chat. And then it will come up with a whole like a script and the tapping points to tap through. Again, this is publishable, it's easy, or you can publish stuff and people can go and customize it to make it their own. So there's some really fun things you can do with this. I also have used this, everything's in my branding, that's why you're seeing these colors. So I give all of my clients a voice playbook, essentially. I use AI to generate a lot of it. I collect a lot of information, both on their intake survey and their intake calls. And then I have AI kind of put everything together, and it helps them build out their backend in a very customized way. So I would give them this, and we would essentially turn this into like their voice or their identity skill or something like that. And I'm going to give you guys a prompt so you can have your AI of choice interview you, and you can see all of this kind of for yourself as well. It won't be this pretty, but it'll be functional. So just to make sure I stay on track, I'm going to pull up my notes. I have a massive curved screen, so you see me looking everywhere. That's why I'm just looking at the different tabs that I have open. So these are just some of the fun things that you can do with some of the different AIs. Everything I'm showing you has pretty much been Claude. Like I said, I've been using Claude pretty much since like the month it rolled out, a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, something like that. ChatGPT has always pissed me off. I've never liked it. It's good for some things. It's not good for what I like, which is more obviously yapping. I talk a lot. And Claude is a little better about deciphering that and being a little more strategic, thinking with me rather than just trying to like make the stuff happen before I've actually thought it through. So you can use whatever one you want, but it does change constantly. As I was building this, I'm not going to call it a slide deck because there are no slides. If you haven't noticed, I'm not using slides because I'm going to be sharing my screen a lot, and I don't need to share all the extra stuff. So it's changing all the time, which is why you need to be agnostic and why I don't want you to get too hung up on picking the LLM. No kind of more or less at the moment which one might fit you better. Again, Claude, it's been historically, and I think still currently, really good for, I would say, writing, thinking, just going a little deeper, kind of strategizing, whereas ChatGPT is really good at quick answers, research. The image generation is really good on it. And then you have Google's Gemini, which if you use any of the Google things, like if you use Google for your email or you have Google Workspace because you have a business account, you already have a lot of that built in. So that might be the better option for you. So you're not paying more, because if you pay for Workspace, Google Workspace, you already have a decent amount of Gemini features. So we'll go through that here in this next section. You can do different things with different tiers, and they all are more or less the same between Claude, ChatGPT, Google. Perplexity is another one. I'll go through these just a smidge bit more kind of quickly here. Basically what you're looking for, like free is great. You'll run into limits quicker and you don't have all the features. I would suggest the give or take $20 a month plan. for any of them to start with, and start with one. Just pick one and go for it. We're going to set this up so you can transfer to any of them later, or even work with multiples at one time, which is kind of, I don't want to call it like an advanced hack, but I will very frequently get pretty deep in like a strategy or execution process of something. And then before like the next major stage, I'll give like the whole plan, or like what we have to date. If I built it in Claude or strategized it in Claude, I'll chuck it into ChatGPT or chuck it into Gemini. Say, hey, Claude created this, poke all the holes. What's wrong? What's missing? What's inaccurate? What's outdated? I love pitting AIs against each other, because if you ask an AI to critique its own work, it tends to critique itself fairly nicely. It'll come up with a couple of things and then fix it, but overall, it's going to think it does a pretty good job. So I love to pit AIs against each other, but it's easiest to do with the pro plans because they think a little more, a little better, and you have access to a few more features. If you want to not have to just copy and paste everything all the time, if you want your AI to actually do stuff like organize your emails, clean up your local folders, post on your behalf to social medias, connect to all the different things very seamlessly. I have used Claude, like the Claude and Chrome extension, to build out backend funnels in my Go High level. Can I do it faster? 100%. So much faster. But it can build it, and I can go do literally anything else I want. So it's still saving my time. Even though it's not as fast, I'm not doing it at all. So it's still a win. And that comes with certain tiers. So kind of what you're looking for is like work. Claude, they call it Cowork. ChatGPT just last week, so early July, they released ChatGPT Work, which is the equivalent. So it can actually go out and do stuff. And they have equivalents, again, Claude Code on ChatGPT. It is called Codex. So expanding Codex usage. So Codex, they all work in the chat just like regular. And you don't actually have to know code, but you do have to know how to think, which sounds kind of crazy. But I'll tell you more about kind of how to think, which is kind of how to prompt in a way that makes it useful. So you can start definitely with the free plans. ChatGPT is nice. They kind of have this little in-between tier. I personally, because I know somebody is going to ask, I have the Claude Max. I have $100 a month. That is my main ride or die subscription. I believe at $100 a month, I think I'm somewhere around like 5x usage more than Pro. But while you're just getting started, the Pro is going to be more than enough for you guys, whether it's Pro Claude plus ChatGPT, Google AI Pro if you want to use Gemini. Perplexity is a little different. It does some different things. $20 a month, but what this does, at $20 a month, it lets you pick which model to use. So you're in the chat and you pick a model. And you can pick from ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Google, Claude. You can pick different models from different AIs. Hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes this is useful, especially when I want to pit them against each other. Sometimes they all just think close enough to the same that it doesn't really matter. So Perplexity is really good for research. Pulls stuff from the web very accurately, can pull down reports, and really does a good job if you're asking it to go out and find data. Not my favorite, other than for more of the deep research type stuff. And if you can't tell, stack everything. Everything's a stack in my world. So my Claude, $100 a month, is my ride or die. I do like 90% of my work, or 90% of my AI work within Claude. And I do run into my usage limits. You can't just buy it and use it 24/7. Even at the very max plan, which I think is like $200 a month, you can't just 24/7 run it. You run into usage limits, memory, context, things like that, where it'll say like, okay, your usage limit resets in 5 hours. Your usage limit resets at 2 a.m. on Wednesday or something like that. I have very intentionally kept myself at this like 5x $100 a month and not gone up to the $200 a month. Not because I can't afford it, but because it makes me stop. Because I reach my usage limit. That's it. I need to turn my brain off for the day because it takes a lot of brain power to do that. Now, if I'm working in code or something, that's a little different. But for, like I said, most of what I do, I want to hit those usage limits because otherwise I will just keep going. I will not eat. I will not sleep. I'll forget to take my dogs out. And I just get way too down the rabbit hole if it doesn't cut me off. So start with the $20 a month. Respect the lower usage limits. Use it as a way to unplug, use your brain, think again, and pick whichever one you want. If I was going to make a recommendation, I'd say your ride or die would probably be Claude or ChatGPT. And then if you're just doing the $20 a month, awesome. Do that. If you want to upgrade, do an upgraded of one of those two. And then if you want a secondary one, which is how I have it set up. So because I have Google Workspace, I use Gmail and all of that for my business. I already have basically this Google AI Pro. So do lots of work, do lots of things in Claude is pretty much my MO. And then because I have these features here, which is there's also the image generation feature here, which is really nice. I don't really use ChatGPT that much unless I want like a really unbiased answer because I have made it so ChatGPT doesn't know me and I've kept it in the dark on purpose. So it's not connected to this kind of like brain and folder structure that I'm going to show you how to build so you can be AI agnostic going forward. One thing I do want to point out, Gemini works really well, obviously in Google products. If you're using Microsoft products, I'm sorry, Copilot's there. Microsoft has forced it down to every level, whether people like it or not. And like all Microsoft products, I don't know if you guys remember like the little like clippy, like the little paperclip assistant back in the day on Word. Copilot's about as useful as that little guy was, I think. So it's not good. It can do some things, but I would connect your Microsoft products into Claude or ChatGPT. They work pretty well in there. But if you use Google, great. If you already have a subscription, even better. Then just use that. They have a pretty good, they being Google, has Nano Banana, which is a very good image and like video generator. ChatGPT has a really good image and video generator as well if you know how to use it. Don't go in and do like a million subscriptions though. I try to keep it capped just at like 2. So Claude being my ride or die, maybe for you it's ChatGPT, and then my secondary one, which is already kind of built in. I'm already paying for Google Workspace. So that's my secondary. And I use this basically like a fancy Google. Now, once you have chosen, and by chosen, I mean you used it for a minute and you decide which one tends to give you the better outputs and you're comparing them kind of side by side. Once you pick one, then it's really easy to point it all at the same space, which is the backend files that we are going to build. But before we build out that backend kind of like brain structure, which it's not nearly as complicated as it sounds, it's just your intellectual property and everything you generate with AI saved and you control it and you can use it on any AI. But you need to know how to ask it for things. So this comes into like context or prompting. The thing about AI is, yes, intelligence is in the name, artificial intelligence. It is surprisingly dumb and smart at the same time and never in the ways that you expect. Let me stop the share for a second there. So you want to get used to thinking and think ahead a little bit on what you're asking it for. If it's something simple, go for it, just ask. If you're asking it to like strategize and like build something out, that's when you're going to want to really think it through a little more. You're going to want to tell it kind of what What is the thing for? What are you trying to build? Why does this need to exist? What do you think it needs to do? Give it a little bit of structure. And then you also want to tell it how you want it to come back to you. So tell it what success looks like, and maybe even a little bit of what it doesn't like. If you just say, write me a content plan, I help women lose weight after their first kid, or whatever. It's going to give you something back, but it's going to be generic and kind of crappy. So everything is going to kind of go in stages for something like that, like say the content plan, which I'm going to give you guys a way to generate some content pretty easily. That's not going to be trashy AI slop. But you want to say, I want to connect on an emotional level with my ideal client of women over 40 who are still struggling to recover from their first kid. I want to create one topic or one podcast interview or 10 reel or TikTok topics, or I want to create 10 angles around the topic of I can't lose the weight after the baby, whatever. And I want you to give it back to me in a table that has the day I should post it, the topic, the angle, the call to action, and the caption idea. So that is what you're going to ask it for, not write me a content plan. It's I want it in this table, all of that. That's going to help it give you actually what you want. And if you pair it with something like, hey, go do some research on Reddit, see what people are actually asking and saying, and let's use those words or phrases verbatim, it's going to make it that much better. Now, if you can't tell, I talk a lot. So dictation is absolutely my best friend. Let me pull it up for you guys just so you can see. There's a couple of different ways that you can there we go. So there's a couple different ways that you can chat to your AI. I don't necessarily recommend like just, typing to it, because we tend to filter our thoughts as we type. So I do voice dumps, which you can do it two ways. You can use the little microphone, and this little microphone, press and hold to record. So you just press it, see when it's listening, and then it will transcribe. So awesome, did that. You'll find this ChatGPT as well. I need to finish setting that one up. I just downloaded the desktop app. But you want to either use that, or what I have is called Whisper Flow. This is the icon for it. These aren't always super up to date, but I talk a lot if you can't tell. So this basically lets you just press a button on your keyboard, you talk, and it transcribes. And it works in whatever text box you want to type in. So if you want to type in your AI, awesome. You want to pull up your messages, your emails, Google search, whatever you want to do, it will automatically transcribe it and paste it. This is a paid thing. Like they have a free one, but if you're a talker, you will blow through the free usage limits real quick. So I think I pay $10-20 a month or something for Whisperflow, which is my favorite app to do this, because historically, just dawned on me that I did not switch my screen share so you guys can't see it. My bad. So Whisperflow is the name. Whisper is spelled just without the E at the end. So WHISPR flow. That is my favorite. I have it on my phone. I talk all the time. So perfect. It does a good job of cleaning up what I'm saying and putting in correct punctuation so it's legible, essentially. Whereas with wonder if you guys actually, I don't know if you can see if my face is like blocking this or not. Can I move me? Okay. Basically, and down here next to the Opus 4.8, if you can't see that, maybe if I do this. There we go. I just realized I can't move my face and I'm blocking it. So there's this little microphone here. So you press and hold that. Once it says it's listening, it starts transcribing. It's gotten a lot better. So you don't necessarily need to go get the Whisper Flow for the paid app right now. You can do this, just press and hold, and it will go as long as you want it to. It's gotten a lot better with punctuation, but it won't clean up anything you say, or English language being fun. It doesn't always use the right instance of a word that sounds like other words. So keep that in mind. You might have to go back and look at this before hitting submit or entering it into your AI, but it'll keep going for a good long while. And this is not voice mode. This is dictation. Voice mode is good if you're on the fly. I find it talks too slow, so I don't like it. And I will always use dictation to give it more context and brain dump and let it pull the genius out of what I say, because I say a lot and there's good stuff in there, but I use the AI basically to kind of like translate for me. And you can see I was just letting it go, so you can see how long you can talk, which you can talk much longer. And it'll put all this in, so you don't even need to pay for it if you don't want. But I highly, highly, highly recommend getting used to thinking out loud. If you're already a verbal processor, and if you write a lot, like in your journal or something, you're already a verbal processor. It's just a matter of transitioning to spoken word versus written word. I'm going to delete that so we don't have an issue there. And let me stop that so I can see my notes again. So that's how you talk to AI. Now, how it talks back to you. This is where it can get super frustrating. So all AIs or LLMs, large language models, that's what all AI chatbots are LLMs. They all have a context window and tokens. So basically, every letter, every word is giving it context and costing you tokens. So kind of like character limits. It's kind of how you can think of tokens. There's like character limits. They're just huge. So they're not character limits like we think of them, but that might be a good analogy just to think of it. So the more context you give it, the more tokens you're using. The more tokens you use, the quicker you're going to hit those usage limits that tell you your usage resets in 6 hours or at 2 a.m. on Thursday or whatever the case may be. So the reason this is important is A, you will hit your usage limits, and B, the hardest thing for me to learn with AI was changing chats. So we have our chat and we want to do the one thing. Like if we go in and say, hey, we want to create a content plan, we want to create that whole content plan in the one chat, right? That logically makes sense to a human. But the way these LLMs, these AIs, the way they work is every single message gets reread every single time. So think of it like you're reading a book. You read the first sentence. Cool. You got to read this first sentence again in order to read the second sentence. All right. Now you got to go back, read the first, read the second. Now you can read the third, and on and on and on. So it's kind of like rereading, say you're like 5 chapters deep. You have to reread all 4 chapters just to read the next sentence in chapter 5. And again, the whole book to get to the second sentence in chapter 5. As you can imagine, even with it not thinking like a human, the compute power, it gets confused. Like how many times can you reread something before you start getting confused about it? So this is when it starts to do what's called either context rot or hallucinations. So it starts giving you bad outputs or responses, being like it comes up with something or says something that you already told it, like, no, I don't want to go that direction, or no, that is not a fact about me. It will forget that. And so it starts to rot and degrade in its outputs. This is also where it comes into having these like hallucinations. It will just make shit up. It is wild how confidently it will hallucinate. And I like to tell people you should think of your AI, your LLM, whichever one you use, because they all more or less work the same. Think of it like a 16-year-old, so teenager with like 3 PhDs. Like it's super, super smart, but also really dumb. Like it will confidently, so confidently gaslight you, tell you you're wrong. Oh yeah, you're right, but I overrode it with this because I thought we decided that. Like you need to spell out exactly what you want it to do and then keep it on track, because it's so smart. It has all the knowledge, but having all the knowledge and none of the real world experience, like a teenager, makes it also very frustrating to work with when you expect it to work at the same level as your mind or how you expect like somebody you hire to work. Honestly, if my AI was a human, it would have been so fastly fired in like the first week for the mistakes that it made. I would not tolerate from a human on pain. But because it's an AI, it's not quite human, doesn't think the same, I tolerate it. You can kind of train it, but you can't train it quite like a human, which is where, again, this brain that we're building, and I swear we're going to get there. That's where all of this comes into play, because you're giving it the context to make better decisions without killing your token usage, while also making sure that you're not repeating yourself across AIs. And it is always fresh and accurate and not pulling from its memory that it maybe never updated. So there's a few different ways that we do this and we organize our thoughts. Ideally, we're working in folders or projects. Kind of depends which one you're using. There's all kinds of different things with these AIs. So they're all more or less the same, but they call them slightly different things. So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out and translating. And you can ask your AI, like, hey, Claude, what's the equivalent of Claude projects in ChatGPT? And it'll tell you what they call it. These are basically like your departments almost, or like containers of knowledge. So I use projects like in Claude. For each client has a project. So everything about that client, all our transcripts, all our Zooms, all the forms, all the everything lives in that project. It's not out in my global where I'm working on my brand, my newsletter. It's contained where it needs to be contained. I do also have a project for my newsletters and like my branding, because that doesn't need to be in the same project necessarily where I do my finances or my EFT tapping scripts, things like that. So those projects are the smaller containers, but you still have lots of chats within a project or a folder, because the context starts to rot. So you might be working on the same one thing, like the same chat might kind of actually go over like 3 or 4 chats. If you're creating, say, a content plan, you're going to do maybe 3 or 4 chats. You're going to have like a strategy chat, and we're going to have a strategy part 2 chat because the context got full. And there's a specific way to know, that's very easy to know when you're getting that context rot, and it's going to start to give you some really crappy outputs. And I'm going to give you that prompt, or you can go to the workbook link that I put in the chat and grab it there as well. So there's global instructions that we're going to install, and I'm going to show you where to do that in Claude, and we'll kind of go through like a setup of ChatGPT a little bit too. That's why I have it on my computer, not totally set up yet. So we're going to install a few different things, which is why I'm telling you all these terms, not to overwhelm you, but so you know where we're going, what we're doing. And as we're installing prompts or skills are kind of like really good saved prompts almost, but also a little bit of reference documents. So you don't have to tell your AI every time what you do, who your audience is, what you're working on. It has its own internal memory, but we're giving it an actual good memory instead of just like a random file dump. And a skill, which is a kind of a new term. I think of it basically just as a saved, really good prompt is what a skill is for me. It gets a little meta-y because you say, like a prompt I use frequently, use your skill creator skill to turn this chat into a skill. How many times do we need to say skill? It's very weird. But AI is changing the way we talk, and this is part of it. So you can have AI create and save these prompts or skills, and you can do it as a skill. It's kind of like a custom GPT in ChatGPT, or a gem is what they're called in Gemini or Google's AI. So you can save them that way and figure out how to start stacking and pointing them. This is the foundation of kind of like workflows. So if you have a newsletter workflow, it's, hey, use the voice skill to write the newsletter and use your Notion connector to get the database for recent studies to pull from, then run it through the editor skill and spin up a sub agent to confirm the edits and repeat until it's good enough to hand off to the user. That's kind of like a workflow that involves several skills and several layers. That's what all of this is culminating in. Because if you're just doing what's called one-shotting, so you're like, you prompt it and it gives you something and then you go do something with that, that's basically just like a slightly souped up Google search. We are not here to do a slightly souped up Google search. We are here to be more efficient and have AI do more for us that doesn't need to be purely and uniquely human, essentially. Excuse me. So even like with that newsletter skill, I still edit the crap out of it. I cannot get it to sound enough like me or human enough that I'm happy to publish it without doing a decent amount of edits. Does it give me a draft that's like 80-90% good? Yeah. If I have the flu, am I probably going to just like publish it and not worry about it? Yeah, it's good enough for that. Would I cite it as like a pillar or submit it because it's something I'm really proud of to like Forbes or something? No. That's where I go in and edit that last 10 or 20% to make it truly human and to make sure it all makes sense. So I do this in a few different ways, and all of this revolving around the skills, the context, the documents. The documents are all in what's called Markdown. It looks weird, kind of looks like a terminal. It's just, if you remember DOS systems back in the day, like the black background and the white typeface that's like super typewriter looking, that's basically a Markdown file. It just doesn't have all of the editing and human palatable stuff, which is fine. You don't need to read it. Your AI needs to read it. And you can pick your model of AI to select your level of thinking to save your tokens, but it'll be a little bit at the cost of its context and true thinking power. So there's a lot to this. We're going to actually kind of like demo and walk through some of this so it all starts to make sense. But I wanted to expose you to the terms first before I just go in and like lose you. Also why this is recorded, because I realize this is potentially a lot to take in. So before we go in, Holly says hi, by the way. And hopefully her walking in front of my microphone isn't messing this up too bad. I just thought about that. So before we go in and start doing all this, I want to give a quick caveat on like security and privacy. So keep in mind that there's no like attorney-client privilege or AI user privilege, at least not now, not as it stands. So you do not want to enter in sensitive client data, passwords, keys, logins, potentially not even financial or health information, depending on how you do it. Definitely not any logins or anything that's under NDA or compliance, HIPAA type of rules. You don't want to put any of that into your AI. There's ways to turn off like save your information for training, but what does that really mean? No one really knows. We're still too new into this. So anything you put in can be retained buy the model, to train the model for the company, whoever buys the company, like OpenAI, which is the creators of ChatGPT, may or may not go bankrupt. They've been in the hole for a really long time. So you never know. And hell, Amazon might buy them. That would not surprise me in the least. And there's also the company sponsored. So if you have any AI through your company, no, just like anything else that's through the company, it's not yours. If a company pays for your ChatGPT subscription, it can potentially will be used against you, what you entered into it. There was a case, I can't remember, I think it was mid Q2 of 2026 here, where it's there's a company sponsored ChatGPT. The employee chatted to her ChatGPT like, hey, my job sucks. I'm thinking about quitting. What do you think I should do? And then I don't know if she quit or got fired. Something happened, went to court, and the company submitted, hey, here's her ChatGPT records. She was already thinking about quitting. Ergo, she does not get or qualify, for unemployment or wrongful termination or whatever it was that took the thing to court. But basically what she chatted to AI about was used because it's not privileged information. So keep that in mind with anything. A lot of authors don't want to put anything at all, including ideas or even brainstorming, into AI, because if somebody says, I need an idea for a book, and you've just been chatting with it about your book, it might give somebody 2 houses down or 2 countries over the same idea. Like, oh, here's a good idea for a book. It doesn't understand that intellectual property barrier right now. So if you wouldn't put it in an email to a stranger, if you wouldn't blast it on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, wherever, don't put it in. So keep this in mind with your health and financial data as well. May or may not be used or pulled later on. We already know our cars are sending information that like big insurance companies and stuff can buy. And most people don't realize that. So same thing. If you're asking, hey, what's this lump on my side? I self-diagnosed myself with fibromyalgia or whatever. There's a chance in the future insurance says, oh, hey, your ChatGPT or your Claude history says you thought you had this that year, therefore it's a pre-existing condition and excluded. Would not surprise me whatsoever if something like that happens. So just be smart the way you use it. Don't put anything in there that you want to just blast all over the internet and want everybody else to know. Now, all of that fun stuff aside, let's start actually building something. So what we're building is basically the brain. We're kind of creating the neurons, and then we're going to start creating the connections between the neurons, just like a brain. It's not complicated, I promise. It's just a good old file structure. And this is something you might hear like as you get into AI, and it'll start popping up in your feed more now since you watch this. If you hear terms like RAG or Carpathy, I think I said that right, second brain, obsidian, even some like Jarvis builds talk about this. And really all it is a bunch of data points or documents that are connected, neurons connecting in the brain. It's just a file structure. We've all been using it forever. But I want to help you structure a little better so it makes sense to you and to your AI. And also, I would say whether you do Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, get the plan, the pro plan, the $20 a month-ish plan that has like the work or Cowork feature. And you don't have to write or type or build a single one of these things. You can just give the prompts that I'm going to give you and say, hey, build me the brain or the structure, the whatever. I personally really like the PARA system, PARA. And it stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archive. This is not my system. Been around for a minute. I cannot remember the creator's name at the moment. I want to say Tiago Forte. maybe. That might be a different thing he created, but that could be para too. I'll have to look that up. It's been a minute since I learned this, but I've just been using it. So I will show you guys I'm already here. Just so you can get an idea. Sorry, cat was on the keyboard. Hopefully nothing crazy happened. Okay, I think we're good. So I use this in my Apple Notes, which is kind of like a core function for me. So you can see here, get to the right thing. Apple Notes, amazing. By the way, super underrated, especially if you're in the Apple ecosystem. So here you can see projects, areas, resources, archive. Under projects, these are kind of like temporary-ish things, like they have an end date. They are not permanent or persistent. So for me, this is like my Build Your Focus Stack course, CRM automations that I want to build, AI automations that I want to build, or courses that I've taken kind of GitHub repos, whole nother kit and caboodle. I'll not throw that at you guys. Then I have areas. These are more the big kind of buckets or rocks, like that anchor my life. So a couple different companies. I save some of my EFT scripts that are really good, make me feel the feels. My company has a whole like nesting thing going on here. For my home life, I got the farm. I have the different health ones, all the different stuff. And these are more kind of like long-term storage is kind of how I think of areas. Resources, just like it sounds, these are the reference materials. Things I don't need other than to point other things to reference is how I think of them at least. And then archive is just how it sounds. It's old stuff that I don't really use anymore or is outdated, but I don't want to delete. You can see the same thing in my Notion. And if you don't know about Notion, can I share Notion? Why do I not see my Notion? Well, that's fun. Let's just go with entire screen then. Here, we'll do that. So try to move this so it's not too crazy for you guys. Hopefully that's okay. So I have to move it so I can't see what you guys are seeing quite. Here, we'll just, that'll do it. So you can see here I have my projects, areas, resources, archives. My Notion is different. I have my Notion in some ways mirroring this local file system. And this is what I'm talking about. These are files. These are folders. These are markdown documents. So AI reads them really easily. These are in Notions. They look a little prettier to the human eye, but markdown documents are typically just very, very easy, very simple. You can see here, don't be intimidated. I know this looks crazy. My local, I don't even know what you want to call it. Basically, this is just my local regular files on my computer, like you would find on any of them. I have a whole Cowork folder, which is the name I originally gave it when I'm using Claude. I have my projects, resources. These are done by what's most frequent. But what's really important here is this .md. That means it's a markdown file. This is what the markdown files look like. It's just this black text, looks kind of weird to us. Makes perfect sense to the AIs and keeps the tokens down a little bit because it doesn't have to read the pretty human formatting. These like the stars, the hashtags, the arrows mean something different to it. It means bold or italicized without having it use its eyes to translate, which takes more power, essentially. So everything is nested. Like I have my content HQ. I'm in the AI workshops because that's what we're doing. I have multiple different things in here, the workbook, and then the kind of outline that I'm going from here. You'll see as you're looking at these, there's like a README and a handoff, a memory tasks. Claude is in quite a few of them. This would be, if you're not using Claude, it's basically just README is what yours is going to be. the handoff. If you go to the coaching, you're going to see there's Claude, there's memory again. We're just in there. So on the courses, there's a Claude, there's a memory. Even though they're the same name, they're nested under different file structures, and that makes perfect sense to your AIs. And that's what we need it to make sense to, right? We don't need it to make sense to us. We need it to make sense to our AI, whichever one we use. And that file structure is how you're going to be able to use any AI that you want. Okay, now that I got myself all moved around with my thingies, first thing we're going to do, and this is all going to be saved, recorded, we're going to do with the workbook, all the prompts are in here. So whatever AI you decide to use, first thing we are going to do is we are going to set the global instructions so you know when it's starting to get kind of rotten with its context and it's time to switch to a new chat. And we're also going to tell it to set up that whole file structure because we don't got time for that. AI can do it. And then we also want to give it what I call like the session start and closeout skill, which basically tells it to reference those files at the start and then update the end and then update at the end. Ugh. I've been talking for almost an hour and I have so much more to go through. I knew I packed way too much into this. I just knew I was going to do that. My ADHD tendency and info dumping, especially on stuff that's so exciting like this. All right, let me pull this up. I want to show you guys. Hopefully it'll show my ChatGPT. Also keep in mind there is a difference between, oh sure, now Notion shows up. Okay. And now my Claude does not show up. There it is. So there is the web apps. So if you go to like OpenAI, chatgpt.com, Claude.com, whatever, that's the browser version. I highly, 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 highly recommend you do, just Google ChatGPT desktop, Claude desktop, Gemini desktop, whatever desktop, and install the desktop app. When that happens, you get access to more features and the limits don't change. You just get access to more and it's just better. So I just did ChatGPT, I uninstalled it and I'm reinstalling it now for you guys. So you can see exactly what it looks like. Again, Claude or ChatGPT would be my recommendations as your kind of like ride or die ones. You can do Gemini if you want, if you're already paying for it, like with Google Workspace. I was just using Claude long before Gemini was really a thing. So I like it. We work good together. First thing, when you download the desktop app, this is what it's going to look like when you open up for the desktop. You can pick whatever makes the most sense here for you. I'm just going to say other because I'm not really any of those things. Those are kind of like more department roles. And then you're going to, all right, it's going to ask you questions and they're all going to do this more or less, give or take the same, slightly different. So since we said other, it probably is going to ask us a couple more questions, but that's okay. Here you're seeing this is the desktop app and I can work directly with your computers, files, folders, and apps. That means this is going to be able to create that folder structure that I was showing you so you don't have to go and create 10 different folders. We're going to create those folders probably, I'm going to suggest you do them locally. So just on your computer, like a regular like Word doc or file, and then have them mirror or back up to Google Drive, iCloud Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, whatever. So you have access to them on the go because the mobile apps, the web apps, they don't always have access to your local files, but it is far more powerful, far more seamless, and much better for your token usage to work in the desktop app and using those Markdown local files. Will all of this change probably within the next 6 months? Yes. By the end of 2026, I fully anticipate a built-in working like brain memory, so this doesn't have to be built. But why wait another 6 months? Because while you're not behind learning AI yet, you are getting very close to being behind. Like there's already been so much money left on the table. I wouldn't wait any longer. Learn how to use it now and take those foundational skills, this practice time, and just know that it's going to get better and easier. And this shit literally changes every day. But this is the backbone of how anything and everything is going to work. Even going forward, even if you don't have to set this up on your own going forward, you still at least know how it works. You don't ever want to be completely dependent on somebody else's brain and thinking. You want to know how to make or do the back end things because you're just much better set up in general to take off and really take advantage of everything. So we're going to start with a simple task, leave a note on my desktop. And so what this is going to do is it's going to pop up and ask, you'll get this a lot. It's going to ask for permission all the time. Once you get comfortable, you can kind of give it blanket permission to do stuff. Until then, just kind of do it one by one. So it's going to need access to my desktop. So yep, we can allow. Another little allow thing popped up on my Mac. I don't think you guys saw that because I'm not sharing the window for the whole thing. So if you're not familiar with Mac, Finder is File Explorer, but Mac. So we're going to open Finder. All right, and we see there is a TXT file. Looks remarkably similar to that. Chat just connected. Okay, and we're back. Sorry. The cat rolled on my keyboard, disconnected the chat. So we can open this up. It's just a text file. There's nothing crazy about this. If you've been around since the 90s or before, there's the cat again. You'll recognize this. So no big deal. And it's just showing you that it did it. Let me go back, make sure. Again, might look slightly different, but more or less we're right there. And it's going to think, there we go. The nice thing maybe is all the AIs are starting to do this. So if you set up Claude for the first time, it's going to ask you if you want to import work from other AI apps like ChatGPT. Since we're setting up ChatGPT, it's asking if it wants me to let it import work from Claude into it. If you don't have anything, may or may not pop up. I'm just going to say skip because I kind of like using ChatGPT a little like a stranger. I don't want it to know me because I want it to be unbiased. And like I said, I use Claude 90% of the time, but I also use Gemini and Chat and play Claude off them as well. So first thing when you set this up, you're going to see it's going to give you some suggestions on things you can do. Projects, we talked about those. Those are kind of like contained folders. Plugins are how it's going to plug directly into your apps, work in like Excel or Google Sheets, Gmail, Outlook, whatever. That's what the plugins are. There's a few other things you're going to see over here. So scheduled is just like a scheduled task. So once you get better at this, like this automate routine and recurring work, you'll have scheduled tasks. So basically automated-ish, not agentic, just automated. So if this, then that is automated or a scheduled task. Whereas an agentic task, like OpenClaw is really kind of like one of the like famous-y or maybe infamous ones for this is agentic. So if this, then AI reviews this and iterates and retests and then does this if XYZ is approved. So it doesn't just go in a straight line that you tell it. It thinks and iterates as it goes. That's automated versus agentic. We're just working on automated for the near future. Agents can do stuff, and if you don't know what you're doing, they might do stuff you don't want them to do. So just know you have all of those options here. We're right into ChatGPT Work. If you wanted to jump into Codex, you can do that. Chats are going to be down here. Chat to me is kind of basically like what Google search has been to all of us our whole life. quick little things. Who's that actor? Is someone dead? What, or when did this actor die? Is so-and-so still alive? It's like what I always use my Google for. Same thing. That's kind of how you're thinking of chat. Chat is just quick little questions, searches, high level. I love this on my phone. So whatever you get, put it on your phone, your laptop, your iPad, put it everywhere. I will walk around outside and plants pop up. I take a picture of it in ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever I'm in. Say, hey, what is this plant? Is it toxic to dogs? Is it toxic to chickens? How do I kill it? Like what kind of weed killer does it need? If I see something that I don't know how to fix it, I will take a picture of like a leaky pipe and, hey, how do I fix this? And it will be like, oh, it looks like XYZ. Try this. You would be amazed at what it can do. Again, it's very smart, but very dumb. If you ask it very clear, simple questions, it's pretty smart and very helpful. If you're asking it big strategic or esoteric questions, not so much. But the first thing we are going to do is, now that we have this here and set up, we are going to go to what I call the global instructions. So we know when it starts to hallucinate. So go to the link in the chat and get that Notion page. So that's going to be live, and there's going to be a prompt in there that says global instructions. First thing you're going to do is you're going to go to your name, and you're going to go to settings. This is where it used to be. We're going to do this live. Hopefully I don't make a ass out of myself here. We're going to go to, I'm guessing, configuration. And then there should be, let's see, might be wrong. Like I said, I haven't done it on here before. That's going to do it live with you guys. Oh, wait, personalization. There we go. Custom instructions, aka global instructions. So you're going to go into the workbook, scroll down just a little bit, and it's a real easy copy. And get back my ChatGPT. So it's just a blanket copy. This is what pops up. You'll fill in what's here in these brackets just to give it a little bit of context. Nothing crazy. So we're going to tell it, we're going to point it at a business folder eventually. We're going to create that next with a prompt. Don't worry. That's the source of truth. We want it to act like a co-founder and co-creator. So we want it to challenge ideas, not just be agreeable. You've probably heard AIs are major brown nosers. Keep me focused. So especially for me, like, don't let me go down the rabbit hole of creating 20 different things. I will do that on my own. Easily. And we're going to say, for me at least, you can change this if you want, default to strategy and workflow design unless I ask you to execute. Because for me, it's very distracting when I say, hey, I want to build this. And it's, or I want to think about this. I need to strategize this build. And it just jumps straight into building. Like, we need to think it through and find all the gaps first. Hold your horses, bro. It does not hold its horses, just at all. And then I tell it how to work with me, and this is how it's going to work with you. So again, feel free to edit or adjust. I have it as address me by name. So you can say name, you can say address me, you can say address me as boss in every message. And so every message, if it does not use the word boss in its reply to you, or for like 2 or 3 replies in a row, the context is getting rotten and you need to switch to a new chat. Even though you're not done, it's okay. You create a handoff, go to a new chat, and it picks up where you left off, but without all the context rot, and it's just much smarter, cleaner, and you're going to give you much, much better responses. Now, this next part makes me laugh. I told it to TLDR, which is too long, didn't read. So every response, I want it short, I want it succinct. And I said, give me a TLDR and be succinct always. I said that twice. Is that efficient and succinct? No. But I want it to shut the hell up and not make me read blocks and blocks of text. Because the longer its responses to you, the more context gets eaten up and the more tokens get eaten up the more quickly. So if there's only one of us going to ramble, me. I'm going to ramble. I'm going to voice dump. I want it to be succinct because I'm already burning a shit ton of credits because I talk so much and have to think out loud with it. So yes, I did say that twice in the global instructions. If you don't have that issue, awesome. Feel free to edit these as you want. I'll let you read through the rest on your own. And basically, this is how every chat is going to interact with you, more or less, till it starts getting rotten. And then that is when it's going to start drifting off these. And that's your cue to switch. So we're going to save that. You can enable memories. This is an experimental feature, good and bad. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. You can also change its personality. So for me, I would say it depends on what I'm doing. I would come in and change this. If I am trying to be more strategic or just need to process something, I might keep it at friendly. If I just need to get stuff done and I need to build a workflow, I'm going to probably come into pragmatic. Nice thing, it keeps it concise, keeps me focused. So just depending on you, your work, what you're building, keep that in mind. You can come through and play with all of these as you want as well. One thing to know, there's all kinds of different things, these integrations, plugins, hooks are a whole different thing. Don't worry about those now. The one you will use probably pretty frequently is going to be this usage and billing. So if you're doing something really complex and you're worried you're going to get locked out for 3 or 4 hours till your context resets, come into usage and you'll see how much usage you have left. When it resets, how much is remaining. So on a free plan, I have 95% left. So I've already used some, obviously, lately. I don't use a whole lot, which is why I stick to the free plan quite often. So now that you have that, we're going to go back to the app. We're confirmed that we're in work. Awesome. It always tries to connect you to like Slack or your emails and give you a daily update. I personally have not found it very useful to have like a daily dashboard or email thing. For me, it's just easier to go in and do it and not have it think for me. I cannot tell you how many emails it's missed or auto-categorized for me that I actually needed to see, and just makes me look like an idiot. So I don't find those personally useful, but totally up to you. I do use Notion. That's this little tag here. So I would connect Notion, and if you click that, it auto puts a prompt in. It's set for ask for approval. Awesome. It's set at this model of thinking. You can change the model and you can change the effort. So each model, it's kind of like a different tier. It's kind of like entry level intern versus like fully certified journeyman kind of levels. Are there different thinking? And just ask it, what's the best model and capacity for XYZ, whatever you want to do. So you know which model to use. The higher, the smarter, the more thinky the model, the more tokens and context it's going to use, and the quicker you're going to hit your limits. That's universally true. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go back to the Notion, or we're going to copy, and we're going to tell it to build. So I'm not going to actually run this prompt because I already have it set up and it's going to confuse it. But if you copy the prompt from the Notion that I gave you guys in the chat, this is what it's going to do. You're going to pop this in here. You're going to fill out these couple little things in brackets. Pick where you want. Again, I would say Google Drive, OneDrive, whatever you're using. OneDrive is Microsoft version of Google Drive. And then have it synced there, or just have it go directly to your local computer. Totally up to you, but it's going to say, all right, here's the structure, create the memory at the top level. And then it's also going to create like identity, offer, and voice. And there's prompts for that in the Notion as well. And then it's also going to say, hey, create these skills, structures. Hey, the closeout skill is empty for now, but don't worry, that's also on the Notion. and it's going to do all of this for you. So you really, at this point, are just going to be installing these skills. Let me switch over to the Notion so you guys see this. So this is what I'm copying from. So this is what we just did. So we just did the global instructions on this Notion page. This is what's linked. This is what's going to come up. You come over here, this little copy, you copy it, you paste it into your ChatGPT, your Claude, your whatever. You can go straight into playing with it if you want. So you don't necessarily need to create your folder first. I suggest creating your folders first because it'll make this content spark that much better. But I know me and I know you guys, and you probably want to just like, let's do something fun with it. And it will create something actually pretty decent just off of this one prompt. This is something you can save for later, save it into your Apple Notes, your Google Docs, your wherever. But know that you can turn it into a skill, have it saved in your folder structure. That's the beauty of it. If you have it saved in your folder structure as a skill, essentially, and not just in your AI, you're going to be able to use it anywhere and everywhere and really directly compare outputs. This is a really fun way to start testing which AI you want to use. If you haven't already decided one, or if you're on the free plan of all of them, if you're going to the paid plan, go with the monthly. Don't get enticed by the annual just yet. Play around with each of them until you figure out which one you like better. This is a really good one to start playing around with, especially if content is one of your big goals to have AI help you with. So you copy this, you paste it into all the different AIs and see what gives you the response you like better as you go back and forth and work with it to refine it. You will notice that I have it pointed. Pointed being look up and read Wikipedia's Signs of AI writing page. So this is basically, hey, talent, like go Google this page on Wikipedia. Here's the link. And as you write, avoid all the patterns. So this is going to help it not sound like AI, because I don't know about you guys, I can spot it so quick. I can hear it so quick. And it drives me crazy. I instantly scroll. Like, I don't want to hear an avatar or an AI voice or even a person read something that I could get my AI to give me. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's how I use it, to make sure that stuff does not sound like AI. I also will only use outlines, and then I just riff off the outlines. That's how my content stays human. I don't get as good of responses when I just read from like a script, unless I very heavily edit the script and basically like riff it and then transcribe it and then read my transcription, which is just a lot of extra work. But you can give this a try to test out all the different LLMs and AIs and see which one you like. You can do something different. You can say, hey, I want to do something. I got this prompt, but I want to do XYZ instead. And you can test it that way. If content's not your thing, that's totally fine. That's just a pretty universal thing that I hear everyone talking about. So down here, you're going to also see all of this is laid out. Oops, don't touch it. I have Notion. I use Notion, but I do that all the time. I also, by the way, I did not set up my Notion. I've set it up multiple times throughout the years, and then I get distracted or I get overwhelmed and I don't use it. So just FYI, I did not create any of these. I told my Claude, create XYZ in Notion, whatever, and mirror from my folder structure to my Notion. Because if for some reason, whatever, like maybe I'm on mobile, like on my phone, it can't access my local files. My AI app on my phone can't access my local files. And there's a weird, like, I don't want to call it a glitch, but the AIs can't always read documents in Google Drive, and they can't always create documents in Google Drive or edit them. Like, it's a weird little back end thing. So I like having a little bit of a high-level mirror, essentially in Notion, because I can just point it to Notion and pretty much universally, mobile, web, or desktop apps can go in and read it. It's not as comprehensive, and I haven't found anything yet that doesn't read Notion, but I don't like being locked into one system, so that's why I have it in 2 places right now. So you can go through, read this, build it out. Again, this is your homework. So you set your global instructions already. We did that. Now we're going to build the brain. So you're just going to copy. There's this little button here, copy, paste this into whatever desktop app that you just downloaded or decide to download. I'm not expecting you guys to do it like right this second. And then just tell it all of this, give it a couple, anything in brackets here, just fill it in. And or say, hey, I have this prompt. I need your help filling in the brackets or the variables. Interview me, and it'll interview you. So you can do that if you want. I kept these really simple so you don't have to do that, because we're also going to say, hey, here's the closeout, the session start, and the closeout skill, which is going to help you transfer between chats. And then I have these couple little prompts down here for you to start actually filling out your file structure. So interview me so it understands your identity. Interview you so it understands your offer. Same thing. You're going to put these in your business brain, and then you're going to say, hey, use that business brain, the folder structure, and build me an artifact. You saw that in ChatGPT as well, the artifacts. That's the pretty fun things I was showing you at the end, like that AI voice playbook. And it's going to generate that. And it looks pretty to the human eye. You can publish it. Hell, you can sell it. Whatever you want to do. If you do want more help, I'm doing more workshops on this. I'm going to have to, I was planning to do 4. We might end up doing more because we're damn near an hour and a half in. But once you have this set, things will go much faster, much easier. These are the foundations. If you want me to go deeper, let me know. To me, this is just real easy. Copy, paste, let the AI do its thing. So we don't need to necessarily walk through this unless you want me to. So we can if you want, but I think you all know how to copy and paste, Control C, Control V, or right click if you're old school. And we can get this done and you'll be set up and ready for workshop 2. And in workshop 2, we are going to really work on refining by using the identity, the offers, and the brand snapshot. We're going to work on refining basically your voice. So we're going to turn how you sound, how you write, into a skill, or like a saved prompt, which is sort of a series of skills, and turn it into a workflow. So you say, hey, I need to write an email. I need to write a newsletter. I need content that sounds like me. I need a caption that doesn't sound like AI. That's all going to be started in the next workshop, which in theory should be next Wednesday. What is that? Would that be July? Yeah, it would still be July. I'm just going to go ahead and schedule it actually. July 22nd. We'll call it 1 p.m. again. So same time and place as this will also be recorded and put to the playlist. And you're going to see something very similar to this. But if you come to that workshop having put all of these in there and you have your backbone, your file structure, basically this mirrored on your local, you can do it in Notion if you want. You can do tons of subpages and stuff like that here. You can even see this is like the handoff document with links. This is all back. You don't need to read this. I don't read this. This is all just for my AI's knowledge, so I can go back and forth. You can do it all in Notion. Don't necessarily suggest doing it all in Notion, but if that's easier for you, that's totally fine too. I just say do it local because then you own it and you're not dependent on Notion still being in existence. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I like to be in control and own stuff as much as I can and not be at the whim of a company closing, getting bought, having a scandal, whatever. So we are going to go install all of those. Where do we go? This is all the stuff. I didn't just planning these workshops. I didn't do any of this, by the way. AI, my Claude, built all of this and updated it multiple times as we went through the iterations, as you can see by the multiple versions of things here. And then we're back to the workbook that you guys have access to. I'll pop it in the comments. Should already chat, but I'll put it like in the description or something of the recorded video as well. And down here at the bottom, if you want help with this, or if you already have a whole bunch of we'll call it IP, intellectual property, a bunch of documents, bunch of everything already in like ChatGPT, but you want to move to Claude, or in Claude, but you want to move to Chat, whatever. It's going to be a slightly different process. As you install it, it will bring over a lot, but not all of it. So if you want help building out your brain from where you're currently at with your AI, so you can go to any AI and be totally agnostic moving forward, feel free to book a call. It's like 30 minutes. It's free. We'll see if we're a good fit or not. And if you actually need my help, or if I can just like give you some guidance on it. This is really good for the people who need a little bit of hand holding, either to do the thing or the accountability to actually get it done, like this year. That's pretty much what that is for, but feel free to message me or comment any other questions you have, and I'll try to hit them in the next one. So until then, you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Send me your questions. If I went too fast, too slow, if you want more demo, let me know. I don't think you want to watch me copy and paste stuff. So if you do, though, let me know, and we can definitely get that set up and do it that way. But I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. We'll see you next time.